into another edition of Bet. I'm Anita Marks. We've got a great show lined up for you on this Monday afternoon. Erin Dolan's going to join us with some NBA exciting slate of games for this Monday night. Jeff Passan is going to join us to talk some Major League Baseball. Big spring training already in action, so we're going to take a look around the league and also talk about some of the new rules that are being implemented here in 2023 and how that could affect the over and unders this season in Major League Baseball. And also, Brett Okamoto is going to join us. We've got a big UFC weekend ahead of us. Never too early to start previewing that. But let's welcome in Erin Dolan for the first time on the show. Erin, good afternoon. We're going to kick it off with a little reaction or no action, my friend. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. As we know, the NFL draft's going to be here before we know it, right? Georgia won the national championship with Stetson Bennett. A lot of people feel like, whoa, quarterback who wins the national championship, he should be drafted in the NFL draft. But will he not be drafted in the NFL draft? And by the way, you could get that at even money, Erin. Reaction or no action?
I'm going to go no action on this one. I actually do think he will end up being drafted by somebody. And he does have one of the coolest stories. I mean, he obviously won back-to-back national championships with Georgia. Not to mention 5'11", 190 pounds. But the con, I should say here, is that he's 25. And if you look at the league as a whole, there's some quarterbacks who are actually younger than Stetson Bennett, including Joe Burrow, Tua, Jalen Hurts, even more. So I do think he's a little bit behind in terms of age, and there's a lot of question marks of if he would be successful in the league, but that doesn't mean he won't get drafted. I do think he'll get drafted, so no action for me on that one.
I'm with you. No action here for me as well. I think Brock Purdy really paved the way for somebody like Stetson, right? Like, you look at a guy who could possibly be drafted in the 7th round and be a solid backup quarterback in the NFL, right? And if a team drafts him in the 7th round, then they don't have to bid for him as a rookie free agent, which is definitely beneficial for a number of teams. Listen, as you pointed out, Erin, he's got a lot of physical limitations. There's no denying that. His arm strength is not there. Again, solid backup in the NFL. What he does bring to the table is that he is older, he is more mature, and there are intangibles there that you can't teach, right? It's the smarts, it's being able to read defenses. And we've seen him have his best games against some of the top talent opponents in college football. So I'm with you, no action there. Question number 2, the Los Angeles Angels, as we get closer, of course, to Major League Baseball season starting. Will they make the playoffs? As a futures bet, you can get it at 2-1. Reaction or no action?
No action for me on this one. So if you look at the Angels, some pros for them that I would say is one, we already know they have Shohei Ohtani, but they actually have a better pitcher rotation in acquiring Tyler Anderson. On top of that, last year they got, a little bit of the injury bug. At one point they were 27-17. The injuries down the stretch definitely hurt them. And they're trying to add more depth, and they're doing a good job of that this offseason. But the con, and the reason why I'm saying no action, is just that the AL West is absolutely a bloodbath. All 4 teams could really arguably make it to the postseason. So I just think this is one that I would stay away from for now. But things do look like they will be bright for this team. But again, the MLB season is very, very long. So should they get the injury bug again, that would obviously be an issue. So again, no action for me on that one.
I'm actually going reaction here. Of course, as we know, Mike Trout, Ohtani, you mentioned it. I feel that he's going to win the MVP, arguably the best player in Major League Baseball. Probably would have won last year if it wasn't for Aaron Judge knocking 62 homers out of ballparks. But Ohtani is in a contract year, so again, barring health, he stays healthy. Who knows what we can expect this season? Kind of like taking a page out of Aaron Judge in that book, right? In gambling and betting on himself in regard to arguably maybe getting the richest Major League Baseball contract in history. And they have a stronger rotation going into this season. Sandoval, Anderson, Detmer, of course, Ohtani in that rotation as well. Now, if you were going to ask me if they're going to win the American League West, okay, I think you're right? A lot of talent, a lot of competition there with Houston. I think the Mariners are going to be better. The Rangers, now that they have DeGrom. But the Angels to make it to the postseason, I'm going to gamble on that. So reaction for me. Question number 3, let's talk about the NBA, the Pacific Division. Okay? Winning the NBA title, the Suns at plus 175. Reaction, no action.
I feel like I have to go reaction on this one because I can't go no action on all three. But this is the favorite in the market, but plus 175 is still really good value. So look at these teams as a whole in this division. You got the Lakers, Warriors, Kings, Clippers, and Suns. What really stands out to me is the Clippers and the Suns. The one thing we know about the Suns is they're still awaiting Kevin Durant to be implemented into that lineup. They were already a good team. They're going to be even better with Kevin Durant. But here's the reason why I think they are going to be even better than people expect. If you look at a player like Kyrie Irving who went to Dallas, you know that there's a lot that comes with him. I feel like Kevin Durant can step into any lineup, make it better. He's not a selfish player by any means. He's not going to need to go out there and make, 40-plus point games all the time. He's able to facilitate the ball as well. So I actually think this is a good market to bet. Plus 175, I'll go reaction.
I'm on the opposite side here. I'm going no action in the Pacific because we still haven't seen KD take the court. He's expected to this week. And once he does, keep in mind, there's going to be some growing pains there, right? Like in regard to the ebb and flow and everybody's whose role is going to be what and developing that chemistry. And I really like the Kings coming out of the Pacific. Fox and Sabonis, they've really surprised me. Watch out for the Clippers team as well. So I've got either the Kings or the Clippers coming out of the Pacific. So no action there for me. Let's stay on the hardwood, Erin. Let's give our viewers some winners tonight. And let's start first and foremost, the Heat going up against the 76ers. 76ers favored by 60. Over-unders 217. How are you playing this game?
I'm going to slice this a little bit differently. Looking at Philly in the first quarter, -2. I think they're going to be highly motivated in this matchup coming off a loss against the Boston Celtics. Now, as for Miami, they've just been struggling the entire season. Their offensive rating hasn't been good. In the last 10 games, their offensive rating is ranked 28th, only averaging 108 points in that span. Not to mention, they haven't been healthy this entire season. We know no Lowry. That's not surprising, but Tyler Hero currently questionable as well. I'm not sure if he'll end up playing. I just think Philly right now, they're a healthy squad. They're going against a Miami team that's struggling on offense. They also haven't been good on defense. Don't get it twisted. They haven't been that good on offense or defenses. I mean, at sometimes you kind of see that flash, the Miami Heat that you were expecting. But I think in this one, being the Sixers at home, situational play here. I'm going to take Philly first quarter -2. And one other note quickly, I do want to mention Miami Heat 2-8 against the spread in the first quarter in their last 10 games on the road.
I like it. So I'm playing this three different ways. First and foremost, I love the 67ers. I like the 76ers in this spot, so I'm going to lay the point. That's first and foremost. I do like the under here as well. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And because I like the under, I like Embiid's point total under tonight as well. Okay, so this is a 76ers team. They're 5-1 their last 6 games. They're 24-9 at home, 22-11 against the spread. Don't forget, Erin, they're coming off that really disappointing loss to Boston where Jason Tatum hit that three-pointer. So this is, I bet they haven't been sleeping well at night. They can't wait to get back on the court. So this is a rebound game for them. They were up 17 points in that game against Boston. Also, this is a revenge game against the Miami Heat. This is the first time these two teams will be facing each other since the Heat eliminated the 76ers. Last year, of course, in the postseason. So keep that in mind. As for this Heat team, not sure if Hero's going to play, not expecting him to. He's dealing with that rib issue. This will be their 4th road game. And the Heat, no bueno, do not play well on the road. The reason I like the under, bottom 5 in pace of play. Also, the Heat defense, believe it or not, second fewest points to opposing centers. A big reason why I like the under in Embiid's point total. And also the Heat's offense ranked 28th in efficiency. They're only averaging 103 points per game. So again, like you, I'm playing this a variety of ways. Let's take a look at that Celtics team going up against the Knicks tonight. The Celtics are favored by 2.5, Erin. The over-under's 224. What's your play here?
This is a player prop game for me. I just couldn't get behind the spread or the total because Jaylen Brown is not going to be playing in this game. He's out for personal reasons. And if you look at him in the 2 meetings in which they played against each other, he dropped 30 as well as 22. So I just wasn't really sure how I was feeling about it overall. With that being said, since Jaylen Brown is not going to be on the court, immediately my head went to Jason Tatum. But I felt like his player props were just so inflated because he wasn't going to be playing. So I looked at a different guy. I'm looking at Marcus Smart to go over 17.5 points. and assists. The last time that he played against the Knicks, he only played in one of the 2 meetings this season. He had 24 combined points and assists. I think he'll be setting up Jason Tatum all night. I think he can also put up points himself. This is going to be a tight scoring, I would say, not an incredibly high scoring game, but it's going to be a tight game. So they're going to need to really rely on some of these role players. So I'm going to go with Marcus Smart over 17.5 points and assists.
I like that. I've already gone to the window for that as well. I've got some player props for you, but first, I'm with you. This is going to be a really interesting game. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I've got a small lean, Erin, a small lean on the Knicks, right? I love the fact that Mitchell Robinson is back. I think he's one of the most underrated centers in the NBA. He's one of the best in regard to rim protection. This is a Knicks team. They've won 5 straight. They're 4-1 against the spread, and they are the healthier team coming in tonight. So small lean with the Knicks getting the points. Again, I like your Marcus Smart play. I've got 2 others for you. Give me White over points tonight, right? 25 minutes, he's averaging 17 points per game, shooting 61% from the field, 55% from downtown. And with no Jaylen Brown, I think those minutes are going to increase. And I like Tatum over 3-pointers as well. 8 of his last 10 games, he's hit 3, if not more, 3-pointers. He's averaging 10 attempts, 3-point attempts a game, especially against the Knicks. The Knicks defense ranked 23rd against 3-point shooting, and teams are averaging 13 attempts, or 13 3-pointers, against the Knicks every time they go up. They're just not a really good defensive team defending the 3-point shot. So I've got Tatum over 2.5 3-pointers tonight. We've got the Magic going up against the Pelicans. Pelicans are favored by 4, even though they don't have Zion. And the point total is 226.5. How are you playing this one?
I'm going to take the points with the Magic. The last time that they played against this team, they ended up winning by 13 points. But if you break down and really look at the stats, they shot over 50% from the field as well as from free. I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that and recreate that magic once again. But I don't think that the Pelicans are just going to blow this team out of the water. They've really been struggling lately. They've lost 3 of 4. Not to mention, this is their first game at home in 17 days. And then they hit the road right again. I do think they'll play better at home, the Pelicans. I'm just not sure that they'll win by more than 4 points. So give me the points with the Magic tonight. It's not my favorite play. It's not my favorite game, but that's the way I would play that one.
Yeah, my play here is I'm going to play the under. The Magic, the under has hit their last 8 games 7 times. So 7-1, the under has hit their last 8 games. 14-5, the under has hit in their matchups against the Pelicans. No Zion, no Larry Nance Jr., and they've just been absolutely cold. They're only shooting 40% from the field. I do like this. This goes opposite though. I like the under in the game, but I like over the point total for Brandon Graham at 24.5. He's averaging 23 a game. Orlando is allowing the second most 3-pointers to small forwards. Of course, that's the position that he occupies. And his last 15 games, he's shooting 50% from the field and 88% from the free throw line. Erin, this is where we say hasta la vista to you, my friend, but we are going to see you a little bit later on tonight, 6 o'clock.
Thank
Daily
you. Yes.
Wager on ESPN2. So we'll see you there. We go from the hardwood to Major League Baseball. And again, the big news this season is the rule changes. Pitch clock, pickoffs, shifts, bases. I mean, this is for the baseball historians. I have a feeling they're just going to absolutely hate these rule changes. I actually love them. Let's bring in Jeff Passan to break these down. So Jeff, let's start first and foremost with the pitch clock, right? I believe that the batters are going to have an even harder issue with this pitch clock. Granted, they have to be in the batter's box in the last 8 seconds, right? And we saw in that Atlanta Braves Red Sox game, that was what a debacle that was, right? So I'm just curious, what's the feedback that you're getting from pitchers and batters in regard to this rule change, and who do you think it's going to affect most?
I mean, they may not necessarily like it, Anita, but they understand. They have to get used to it. Like, this is the new reality in Major League Baseball. And while I get that batters needing to be set with 8 seconds to go seems like it could be burdensome, all they got to do is stay in the box, right? Like, it's not that difficult. You just have to be ready to hit like you were in Little League when you couldn't step out and mess with your batting gloves. I think the people who it's going to affect the most is the pitchers, especially as time goes on during spring training, we're going to get a much better sense of how difficult it is for starting pitchers in particular to maintain their composure and really maintain their stuff as the game goes on. It's a lot more taxing throwing a pitch every 15 seconds than it is throwing it every 22 or 23 or in some cases 30 like some pitchers did. So I hope they're conditioned well, because if not, they're going to be running into a brick wall a lot earlier, I think, than people realize.
So very interesting. This plays right into our second question for you, and that is, so because of the speed of the game now and thinking that the pitchers are going to have a difficult time early on before they kind of get used to this, like having to be set within the first 15 seconds, do you feel that we're going to see a lot of overs because it's going to benefit a lot of the batters?
Small sample size alert. It is 2 full days of games that we're dealing with here, and it's also spring training, but they're averaging 12 runs a game in those first 2 days this year, as opposed to 10.6 runs per game last year during the entirety of spring training. So I'll be curious to see how those runs per game total shake out. I think it's worth noting, scoring actually went up in the minor leagues last year when they had these rules in place throughout. So the idea that we're going to have more offense, I think, is very realistic. It's just a question of how much more offense, because we also have to recognize the batting average last year. It was the lowest it's been since 1968. And generally speaking, I understand that we don't categorize batting average at the same level that we used to necessarily. But if I'm putting together a team, I want my guys to get hits. I want them to get on base. I want them to score runs. But the easiest way to do that is through hits. And I think we're going to see a lot more of them this season.
All right, so let's talk about the new pickoff rules that are implemented, right? In regard to how a pitcher would be penalized with a balk. Are they only allowed 2 tries, I guess, if that's the right verbiage, to try to pick off a runner who's on first, right, or second, whatever base they're on. Putting more runners, I guess the idea is Major League Baseball wants to put more runners in scoring position. So how do you feel this is going to play out?
It's going to be interesting. The actual term, if you want to use it, is disengagement. And that's when you disengage from the rubber, either to step off or to pick off at first, second, or third base. And, you know, the hope with limiting disengagements is, frankly, partially the same hope of making the bases 18 square inches instead of 15, thereby cutting down 4.5 inches between the base paths. It's the idea that they want to encourage stolen bases, because the stolen base is something that fans enjoy. It's action. It's guys out there trying to do really athletic things, which they're capable of doing even more now than they have been in the past. Baseball gets a reputation, I think, as a slow and plodding game, and frankly, that's really well earned, but it hides the fact that the athletes in the game these days are better than they've ever been. Now, I'm not suggesting we're going to get back to, 130 stolen bases in a year like Rickey Henderson or Vince Coleman going over 100, but I do think that stolen base rates are going to rise pretty significantly in the big leagues this year, as long as it follows the minor leagues where they were up almost half a game.
Another rule is they're eliminating the shift, and as you alluded to, right, batting average was the lowest this past season since 1968. So again, they want more singles, they want better batting averages. So who are some of the, give me like 2 or 3 guys, Jeff, that you feel that this rule change is going to benefit this season?
I'm sure you're going to be shocked, Anita, that I'm throwing out left-handed hitters, but Corey Seager is a guy whose batting average and weighted on base average against the shift is significantly lower historically than when the shift is not employed. A guy like Shohei Ohtani, I mean, he puts up MVP type numbers every year. They could get even better. Kyle Tucker with the Houston Astros. And I know I'm naming elite hitters here, but I suppose that's the point. Left-handed hitters who have been shifted have had quite a number of hits taken away from them, and frankly, some careers have been either shortened or altogether ruined because they just were not able to adjust. Well, guess what? They're not going to have to anymore. And I'm not going to sit here and suggest that Joey Gallo is going to, turn into Shohei Ohtani overnight, but I think even a guy like Joey Gallo has a much better chance to have an effective season without the shift in place.
Last but not least, you kind of alluded to it in regard to steals, right? So the bases now are 3 inches larger. I actually saw one the other day. It doesn't have that hump at the top, and that's for safety precautions, but it goes from 15 inches to 18 inches. They look like pizza boxes, Jeff. So therefore, you're shortening, obviously, your distance from guys who are trying to steal. So obviously, it benefits base runners. So, what are your thoughts on how that's going to play out this season?
The last time somebody stole even 50 bases, Anita, was back in 2017. The last time somebody stole more than 75 bases was Jose Reyes in 2007. So we're talking a decade and a half of just this slow downward trend when it comes to stolen bases. And as somebody who plays a lot of fantasy baseball and who despises stolen bases, because so often the guys who have them are single category players, and I just don't want them at all. I'm glad that we're going to be able to get some more well-rounded players this year, and I do think stolen base numbers are going to go up pretty significantly. Are they going to be up to where they were in the 1980s? No, not yet, but if we see an effectiveness of stolen bases at a high success rate, I think going forward, teams are going to be a lot more open-minded, not just about bringing in steal-only guys to bring off the bench late in games, but in developing that part of the game in younger players when they're in the minor leagues, so when they get to the big leagues, stealing bases is just old hat.
Jeff, great stuff. This is really going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out this season. Thank you so much for spending some time with us on Bet. Appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks, Anita. Appreciate it.
We go from the diamond back to the hardwood. Let's talk some college hoops. Tonight, giving you some winners, at least hopefully on the slate. What am I looking at? North Carolina going against Florida State. UNC is favored by 8. The over-under is 155 here. How am I playing this? I love the under tonight. I think this total is just way too high. UNC has not been great on the road. Let's be honest. They're only averaging 77 points a game. FSU, not a great team as well. They're 9-20. They did beat University of Miami just a few nights ago, which was really impressive. But their under has hit 6-1 their last 7 games. And let's be honest, this UNC team on that bubble, we don't even know if they're going to make it to the big dance or not. That's just how uncharacteristic that team has been this season. So my play there is the under. And the one game I'm looking most forward to watching tonight, and that's Baylor going up against Oklahoma State. This now has become a pick'em. Baylor was favored by 1.5. It's now a pick'em as we speak. The over-under is 141.5 here. I love Baylor in this spot. I also like the team total over points for Baylor. They're 10-8 against quad 1 teams. They're 7-0 in Stillwater, so they play extremely well at this venue. They're a great three-point shooting team. They're averaging 37% from behind the arc the last few weeks. And meanwhile, Oklahoma State, they've lost 4 straight. They're missing, arguably, their best defender in Avery Anderson. I think this is a huge loss, and I don't think enough is being discussed about this. He had wrist surgery, and ever since he's been out, they've been losing. Like I said, they've lost 4 straight. He's a senior guard, so now it's made their defense extremely vulnerable. So first things first, love Baylor. Now, Baylor's going to be missing a player, George. So what does that mean? Dale Bonner. I like over points for Dale because he is the guy at Baylor that steps up off the bench. They've got a lot of depth, but he's the one who really gets a lot of the looks more of the time. And we saw him play a lot of minutes against Texas as Baylor took care of Texas the other night, 81-72. He put up 13 points. So that's a prop bet I'm looking at in that game. So now we're going to go from the hardwood to UFC. We've got UFC 285 coming your way this weekend. It's Monday, but never too early. In fact, we've got Brett Okamoto who's joining us. Brett, we've got your guy Ian Parker who's going to be joining us later on in the week. But we thought, man, let's get you on now, not too early, to talk about the bouts that we're going to see over the weekend. And this card, worth 2 voices to talk about. So let's start first and foremost, the preliminary fight. We've got Garbrandt, right? Bantamweight champion, going up against, he's minus 170, favored minus 170 against Trevin Jones. So what are you looking at in this fight? How would you play it?
I mean, Cody Garbrandt has become a really tough guy to try and bet. Just because the talent is there. As you say, he was a former bantamweight champion. He looked like he was going to be one of those guys that just had a superstar career, and then he's just taken his lumps. He's lost 4 of his last 5. A lot of those have been by knockout. And he just gets so ultra aggressive. This is a different fight than he was originally scheduled for. As a replacement opponent. The guy that he's fighting, Trevin Jones, is on the last fight of his contract. He's coming in on 3 losses. So you know that he's coming in fighting for his job. That, to me, I like the under of this one. I would take the under of this one. You probably got to pay a little bit of juice to grab it. But I think Garbrandt only knows one way to fight at this point in his career, and that is just guns blazing. And Trevin Jones fighting for his career, I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think he's going to fire back. I think we're going to get a finish in this fight.
All right. Let's talk about the ladies, the co-main event, the flyweight ladies matchup, and Valentina Shevchenko. I said it. Going up against Grasso. Valentino, a huge favorite, but what have we seen this season? We have seen a lot of big upsets when the ladies are battling it out. So what does Alexa need to do here if she's got a shot at pulling an upset?
She's got to fight a perfect fight. She's got to stay on her feet. Valentina Shevchenko is one of the most technical strikers in the entire sport, male or female. But Alexa Grasso has a lot of boxing skills, and we've seen she's from Mexico. We've seen with some of these Mexican fighters that they can keep it on the feet. They do have a lot of technical skill on the feet. She can surprise Valentina Shevchenko, I think, with her boxing, with a little bit of her power, but she needs to stay on her feet. If this fight gets taken to the floor, we've seen Valentina just roll through some people on the floor. I think that's a bad matchup for Alexa on the ground, so I hope that she is short up her takedown defense. She's going to need to keep it on the feet to even have a chance against Valentina. Still a very, very tough fight. She's a big underdog for a reason, but you're not even going to get a chance at an upset unless you can keep it on the feet. We'll see if she's able to do that.
A lot of excitement about Jon Jones returning to action, right? He's been gone for 3 years, and he's got a matchup against Gane. Minus 140 for this to go over 4.5 rounds. Do you think that this goes the distance, and if so, why?
I think it probably goes the distance. Both of these guys have shown in recent years that they are prone to going the distance. Gane is a very, very sort of in-out point fighter, and Jon Jones has been kind of the same way. He's been fighting for such a long time. I think he's really realized how to defend himself in the octagon, and he wants to walk out of there healthy. As these guys continue over the course of their career, you see that defense is more of a premium. You don't got the young, hungry guys that are just going in there and throwing defense out the window and trying to get into a firefight. They value defense. So I think that this is going to be a smart fight. I think it's going to be an intelligent fight by both guys. That's why you're seeing it juiced a little bit to the over. I would maybe take a shot on the under just because I do think both of these guys have finishing power, and I think if Jon especially is able to get it to the ground, he might be able to finish it there, but it's no surprise to me that the bookmakers think it's going to go the over. It probably will, but I do see scenarios in which both of these guys could get a finish.
Okay, so outside of the rounds, hold my hand, take me to the window. How are you wagering this fight?
I think you got to go with Jon Jones at this price. I mean, the guy he's probably the greatest fighter of all time. I mean, you can get into a debate, George St. Pierre, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Jon Jones, but if you're getting him at this kind of price, I know he's been out for a long time, but we've seen oftentimes, the guy it's not like he was at the end of his career. Yes, he has been off for 3 years, but he's still in his prime. He's still a tremendous athlete, and Ciryl Gane has holes, man. Ciryl Gane has holes in his game. We just saw him a year ago when he got out-wrestled by Francis Ngannou, who is not a wrestler. So I think if you're going to get Jon Jones at a decent price, arguably the greatest fighter of all time, you got to go down swinging with Jon Jones. So I would bet Jon Jones.
Love it. Thank you so much. Like I said, never too early to start talking UFC action. Appreciate your time on Bet this afternoon. Thank you.
You got it.
All right, as always, we like to end with before I let you go, and I might be a small sample size, but I am all in on the XFL, and I'm 7-1 in 2 weeks. Who knew? 4-0 week 1, 3-1 this past week. So let's have some fun. I put together some power rankings for you, trying to get our viewers in the know. Right now, Roughnecks, they're 2-0. By the way, they're 7-0 in XFL places back from 2020. So you've got Wade Phillips. I put a lot of emphasis in coaching. They've got a solid quarterback in Brandon Silvers. And oh, by the way, they're going up against the Brahmas this week, and they're favored by 4.5. I jump on that line as soon as possible. The Battlehawks, I've got them. They're 2-0. They've moved up 5 spots. Why? A.J. McCarron is their quarterback, who I feel has the potential of winning the MVP in this league this season. The DC Defenders, I've got them at the number 3 spot. And by the way, the Bottlenecks and the Defenders are going to be going up against each other in week 3. I do like DC favored by 2. Renegades come in at 4. They play the worst team in the XFL, and that's the Orlando Guardians. They're favored by 8.5. And again, I would jump on that line as quickly as possible. This line potentially could jump up to 10.5 at kickoff over the weekend. The Brahmas, I've got them at 5. That's Hines Ward's team. Good balanced team, solid defense. I like them at 5. Then swing in the Dragons. Unfortunately, the Dragons have lost 2 games in the final seconds against DC and St. Louis. I think the Dragons are a lot better than what their record indicates. Then I've got the Vipers at 7. And like I said, unfortunately, the Guardians coming in at 8, rounding it out is arguably, no, not arguably, the worst team in the XFL. So each and every week, I'm going to put together these power rankings for you. A look ahead each and every week to the weekend action that will be coming our way. So always stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for tuning in to Bet. Have a great night, everybody.